Have you ever wondered whether the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment, and acted from that place?
Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts Brian Berneman and Kayla Greenville, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world.
We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers.
From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure to be joined all the way from Texas, USA, by Michelle Henderson. Thank you, Michelle, for taking the time, for being here with us, and for what I know is going to be a really good conversation, especially based on our previous conversation.
Yes.
For everyone that is listening, and perhaps it's like, who is Michelle? Who is Michelle?
Exactly. And, like everybody's journey, we're one person one day and a different person the next day, through all the lessons that we're learning. So growing up, I grew up in a very conservative town, very religious. And, I just knew that there was something bigger out there. I had a really big intuition. I knew what people were feeling. I could feel different energies, and I tried to talk to people about it, and they would no, we're not going to talk about that. So in my 20s, I actually started, in education, started teaching children, and I used that intuition to really help children and their families. And I thought, there is a good use to it. I knew when I was going to have children, and I knew what month they were going to be born, little things like that. And my husband was going, how did you know that? So I've had two different jobs, and it's almost like, spirit or the divine has a way of getting you where you need to be on your journey. And so, I was a teacher, I was a diagnostician working with kids with special needs, and then a behavior specialist. And it just seemed like I needed those three things in my life to do what I'm doing now, which is, I came out of the closet as a psychic medium. And I am so grateful for all of my experiences that I've had, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess you could say I'm an educator, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a spiritual person. So all in one bag.
Beautiful. and I think that it's so interesting always. And I love this question, and everybody that I ask it answers it differently. And a lot of people are saying something in the way similar to what you said in terms of, we are an ever-evolving being.
Absolutely.
And there's so many different ways of looking at who we are and what we are doing and what we're bringing into the world. And I think that one of the things that for me is always really interesting, and one of the interesting things about having conversations with people like you, is that you were in a specific circumstance that didn't allow for your uniqueness to be explored and to be expressed in the way that you would naturally have that.
Right.
And then you had to go through a lot of different things in your journey to be able to get to, as you're saying, where you are now, outside of the spiritual closet, and and to be able to do this work. Because as well, it hasn't been until, in my experience or my knowledge, up until quite recently, that a lot more people are able to make a living by doing something like this. So I think that it's very interesting always for me listening to that. So I'm interested in all of that path, as you were saying, you were working as an educator, but you were already using your gifts.
Right.
Did people notice that, except you mentioned your husband, but did the kids or the parents notice that, and were they asking some more things from you, or was it more like
what actually happened? I don't believe that they actually knew what was going on, but the people around me, other teachers did, because we would meet with the parents and they go, how did you know about the parent, or how did you know about that? So I came out and I told them, honestly, I've got kind of that intuition about it. I didn't know much about it back then. And they're going, wow. They go, I'm not surprised. So whenever I came out in 2019 and actually went on Facebook Live, a lot of my church members, a lot of my friends, they were not surprised. And so it was not as difficult as I thought it would be to be my unique self. So it may have been something that I had to learn along the way to say, you know what? The heck with it. I'm a people pleaser. I need to be who I want to be. Right. And so I think you're right. I think a lot of people are opening it to it. But again, in every situation, whoever you are, you need to come out and show people this is me. And, not wait, but I guess there's always a time for everything. I was going to say, don't wait till you're 50 something, but there's always a time for everything.
And I think that a really important aspect, that is timing as well. And
Yes.
The timing works differently for everybody. Like for someone, they might realize this when they are little kids, or they might realize it when they are 85. It doesn't matter like when that is, but it's the right time for each person.
So did you have to go through an experience and kind of, hide it a little bit, or did you have anything in your life?
No, I think that I'm really grateful of the parents that I have that really allowed me and my siblings to be ourselves. Like I do think, of course, there was some conditioning and some ways of
Right.
that they were, trying to get us to, I don't know, like to try out for all of the different sports, to try out for music and art and all of these different activities, trying to see what actually we liked and what made us happy. But I think there wasn't as much pressure, and especially once I was around 10 years old, that my parents started their own journey and they started like to work on themselves a lot deeper. And from then on, it's been really supportive of like, this is, this is your path, go and do that. So for me, it was more about energy and about meditation and holistic well-being. And they were like, yes, we are behind you 100%. And with my siblings, it's like, you want to go and like business and money and all of that, go and do it. So I'm really blessed that I had that, and I know that that's not as common, but it really allowed me to, especially as a late teenager, early 20s, to have the confidence that, okay, this is my way, and I'm going to try this, and I'm going to leave everything that I knew behind, and I'm going to move away from Argentina. One-way ticket, and it's like I'm just going to trust in the universe that this that it's telling me, and I'll go there, and then it's like, and then I'll go there, and then I'll go to this other country. And so it's been really interesting, but it hasn't been like a one experience that it's like, oh my god, and that changed.
So you were able to kind of let it flow. You know what I'm saying? And good for you for taking the chance and really trusting, your pathway. And and I think a lot of people, because what's interesting, the people that I meet have come from the exact same experience that I've come through. And so it's all, again, I think, the divine is kind of getting us in that situation to help people and know where to help them in that way as of what we've experienced. So I think with you, hiking through different countries and following that pathway is such an awe moment for people, because, I just wish I had done that when I was younger, just to be brave and to just do that. And I think that is so awesome. And you're such a motivator for that.
Thank you. And as well, I do recognize the role that my parents played, because I don't know, if it wasn't because of them, if I would have had that confidence, if I would have had that way of going with the flow and being like, oh, I'm going there, and then I'm going there. And it's like knowing that they were supporting me was really important. And I think that, this is one of the things that I work this, and you work more than me with this, is that support of the parents, because and I want to explore a little bit more on your work that you do with children and everything, but there's so much that as parents, the more conscious that parents are, the easier it is for the kids to be conscious, and the easier it is for having that conscious parenting. So a lot of times, I have some people and it's like, can you help my kids? And I'm like, yes. So when are you coming to a session?
Exactly.
So it's a really interesting balance. And I'm really grateful for the parents that I have. So I know how important that was for me, therefore how important it is for all kids, really.
Absolutely. And I think, you explained it so well, because I think a lot of parents, they may not be conscious of it because I think fear comes into it. And, especially if they grew up a certain way and they were programmed a certain way, it's really hard to get out of that. Again, that's their journey that they're going through. And so I think with a lot of patience and kind of planting the seeds along the way with knowledge bits, I think eventually parents will get there.
Yeah, definitely. So, Michelle, I wonder if you can share a little bit more on, first, what's, for those that perhaps are not that familiar with this, what's a psychic medium, or what is your view of that? And how do you put that into the world?
Oh, I love that. Okay. Because, whenever I first started learning about that I was a psychic medium, I didn't know what it was at all. I'm going, okay, I am going crazy. I am feeling all these spirits. I'm hearing things, I'm just going, I'm going crazy. Okay. So, and then I found a psychic medium who kind of walked me through it. And everybody has this intuition. Everybody has different talents that they use it, just like anything else. So what a psychic, I'm going to split it up because a psychic and a medium are completely different. So if I do a psychic reading for somebody, I'm actually reading their aura. I may be connecting with their team to see what guidance that they need in their life, in whatever area that they need. And so, and people just, they need that guidance sometimes, and when you really hit it on the button of, I know what is going on in your life, they feel that love, and they can actually feel your loving energy whenever you're combining with their aura, which is an awesome thing to do. Now with mediumship, it's a little bit different. Mediumship is I'm connecting with a loved one or somebody who has crossed over for them, and I'm going directly to them. Okay. Where on the other time I would have their team, but sometimes their team will help with me in mediumship too. And so I'm actually connecting with a loved one through, people are going through grieving, and they just need to know if their loved one is okay. Sometimes, and the main thing with mediumship is getting a message. Why does spirit need to be here? Why do they come and talk to their loved one who is on the earth plane? There's always a reason. And a lot of times they'll want to connect with a certain person, but that person may not come through first, because the one that comes through first will have the message. And so, and the reason why I thought I was going crazy is because I could hear my voice or their voice talking to me, and I'm going, those are not my thoughts. And that's when spirit is trying to talk to you. And until you learn how to control it, sometimes they try to, talk to you at the wrong time. And it's like, right now I'm watching my show. Can I please watch my show and I'll talk to you later? Just like a kid coming in, and they want to get their message across. So that's the difference between psychic and mediumship.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. And, I think it's really interesting that you said that before, that everybody has gifts and abilities. I remember when I started to get it more into energy healing and connecting with different energies and guides and angels, and I remember that I couldn't listen to them, and I wanted to listen, I wanted to see, And it wasn't until one of my teachers told me, "You feel."
Yes.
And I was like,
Yes.
Okay. I could feel them, and I would
Mhm.
see, like messages. I would be like thinking about something or talking about something, and I would see like my phone, and it's like 111, or like out of the
Mhm.
333, and all of these different numbers. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm like going to time and check my clock, and it's like 333, and I'm like, okay, like there's all of these messages that are trying to tell me like we are here, even though I wasn't listening, I wasn't seeing them. And for me, that was, once my teacher told me that, that was super important, because it gave me a little of okay, like I am connected, I just have
Right.
this way of doing it, and other people like you can see or hear and have other ways of connecting with the invisible, or what would be the mystery, or other realms, however we want to
Yeah.
touch it.
But and you say you're not listening, but you are listening, just with a different kind of sense.
Yes.
And that is just as important, because, it doesn't matter how it comes through. It just, as long as you can listen and you can interpret what needs to be said to that person. Because, and I always tell people, I don't know everything about you. Just the information that you need to know or learn at this time is what's coming through.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever have people go, "Do you know everything about me?"
Some people, when like whether I'm actually like doing a session, or sometimes even with people that I'm having a conversation, someone's like, "I feel like you're just like looking so deep into my soul," and I'm like, well, I'm just connecting with the energy, but
Right.
it's just like, but it's just that it's kind of like, I don't know, like someone comes for the session and they bring this specific thing, and it's like, okay, like the energy is just focused on that. It's not that I'm just going to know everything about you.
Oh, right. But you're right. And again, it's kind of giving them that knowledge, that understanding of what you are doing. Because I love it that, we all have different talents. Because I mean, just like anything else, you go to different churches, you go to different dentists, you go to different doctors, you go to different holistic people. People use different tools whenever they're reading. And I think it makes it much more interesting and unique.
Yes, definitely. And I think that, as, and which is also my understanding, that we all have gifts and we are all unique and we're all connected, yet we start to be educated and disconnected from a lot of that because of our programming and our conditioning. What has been your experience in trying to see or understand which kids are still connected, and how can they actually keep on working that, and how can the parents allow for that connection to keep?
Okay. And that's a great question, because every family is different. And again, what we were talking about, it depends on what their parents have gone through. Many times I will connect with parents who either have it themselves, or they had a grandmother or a mother who also had the ability. And so they understand it, but sometimes you just need that third party to come in and say, just like, how can you help my child? I know everything about this business, but when you're a mom, a lot of times your child won't listen to you. Okay. But yeah, and I feel like every child is very, very sensitive. And again, it's the environment. But it's really knowing, whenever the parents call me, it's the experiences that they have. Okay. Like my child is talking to a grandmother who is deceased. It's kind of scaring me a little bit. I don't know what to do with it. And the number one thing I tell them is talk to your child about it. Keep that conversation going. Accept it. Don't feel fearful, because your child's going to pick that up, because they're an empath. So the number one thing is definitely to talk about it and see where your child wants to go with it. If they want to continue, just support them in their journey.
Yes, definitely. I see so many people that especially put down kids when they have, as an example, like imaginary friends, like they are talking to other beings that they are not there, and they are really talking to them, and it's like, are they actually imaginary friends, or are they actually talking to people there? I mean, can we, perhaps not seeing that, be open to the possibility that that is actually happening? And as you're saying, allowing that to continue instead of bringing a negative connotation of saying like, we don't do that, or that's not real, or shutting down that experience.
And I think people also need to remember that whenever you do spiritual things, spiritual events, it's so creative. You're using that creative mind whenever you're connecting in, because that's how they communicate with you. When you're, learning about energy or feeling that energy, you're using your creative mind. Once you start using that logical mind, that ego gets in the way. And so that's why I always tell people, don't think of it logically. And children are so creative. And that's why how spirit can come in and connect with them so strongly is because they are so open to it. And they go, oh, yeah, I'm really laid back. I can talk to spirit. It doesn't bother me. But I think a lot of times it does sometimes will bother them, especially if they're trying to go to sleep. And spirit keeps coming in and, hey, I'm ready to talk and play. That's when you need to teach your child. Yes, we need to teach them boundaries, and it's kind of like when you meditate and you clear your mind. It's basically the same thing. If spirit starts talking to you, you can always clear that voice and clear your mind of it. And it's really easy to do, but kids get frustrated sometimes.
Yeah,
which is understandable.
And it is, as you're saying, like sometimes it takes practice to be able to create those boundaries and to understand where to place our awareness and to be able to shift there and to understand how to do that. I mean, like for most people, creating boundaries is one of the most challenging things that we can do. So imagine like for a kid going through a lot of things, especially if they don't have someone that is going through something similar guiding them. Right. And that can be super scary. And I think that, like one of the things that you just mentioned about the logical aspect of all of this, a lot of times when I work with people, I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I cannot explain what happened. Something's just happened. Did you experience it? Yes. So then that's it. No more need for an explanation because I don't know the explanation sometimes. And sometimes I do some explanations, but a lot of times I'm like, this is just energy. And one of the things that I talked with one of my clients once, and he wasn't sure, like he wasn't really believing it. And I asked him if he believed in Wi-Fi. And he said, yeah, I can use it. And I'm like, well, do you see it? It's like, no, well, it's there.
Absolutely.
Because you can see it doesn't mean that it's not there. So
yes, that's a great way.
Being open to something, because that's the thing, like we are just open to that which we are open to believe. So when we allow ourselves to be open to that is so important. And I'm curious, Michelle, like in your experience with working with this, what have you noticed in terms of the openness from kids? Like when you're working, do you work with kids? Do you work with kids and their parents, separate, together? How do you work?
Again, it depends on the family. The younger children, I mainly work with the parents, and I'll explain the reason why. Whenever, they need to learn the tools of the trade. They need to know the knowledge. They need to know how to work with their child, especially the younger that they are. And that way they embrace it, and it becomes like a family bond, I guess you could say, because it's all spiritual. And so I think it really strengthens the family relationship if they bond like that. Now with teenagers, or what should I say anymore, or what the older kids, they will not work with their parents a lot of times. So that's when, of course, I get permission from the parents because they are still minors. And so I will work with the child and the parents separately. Once I work with the child, I always tell them, I'm going to tell your parents what we talked about. because they need to know how to help you the best. And so a lot of times they'll accept that and they'll go, okay. And so, but it'll be at a different time without the child.
Yeah, cool. It's one of the things that I remember when I did one training once, and we were trying to do a lot of meditations, like completely like blindfolded, and trying to develop, like more sensitivity for our other senses to be able to see actually what's everywhere. And one of the things that I noticed with that is that a lot of things that we think that are superpowers are actually our powers.
Yeah.
Like we have that capacity, and
Absolutely.
how incredible it is to be able to tap into that potential that we have. And kids, the younger that they actually open themselves to this potential, the easier it is to stay there, because as you're saying, like they have that openness, they have that connection, and it's actually getting to that work. There's with that training, like when they use that training for kids as well, a lot of times it's for kids to open up their third eye and to be able to see even blindfolded. And it's incredible to see the videos and to see the kids doing that, and it's like, oh wow, like this is incredible.
It's so interesting that you brought that up, because during my training, actually after COVID and everything, we went to a training with Lisa Williams, and we had to blindfold as well and do a reading that way. And it was, to me, of course, being an adult, it was scary because I thought, what if I'm getting all this? And what if I really had to trust in what Spirit was giving me. And so I had to put that, because, because I'm so used to just seeing, even if I do a reading over the phone, I don't see the person, I'm actually just, able to see. But once you take that vision away, you're right, you work on those other senses. And I think the kids are more trusting whenever they do something like that. And I think it becomes more of a game for them.
Definitely. And because I think that, and this is one of the things I know from my experiences, that life is about fun and playing and experimenting and being childlike.
Yes.
and a lot of us, we have been conditioned away from that. And especially I see this a lot in the spiritual realm, especially I work with meditation and a lot of different tools that for a lot of people it's this is serious stuff. It's like everybody not making so much sounds, and it's like sitting there, and it's like, well, we can laugh, that can be part of our experience. What the place of being in that type of experience, it's so nourishing for our souls, because that's part of who we are. It's about bringing that joy and that happiness into our experience. And kids are much more attuned because they haven't been conditioned out of that.
Right. Absolutely. But you also need to remember too, whenever you're teaching a child to meditate or even do yoga, it's completely different. And like you said, you've got to make things fun, make it more into games. And there's so many videos on YouTube now. I did a search. I was going, oh my goodness. and they were doing really cute things about how to teach kids yoga. And I thought that is wonderful that we are getting more and more resources that we can use.
Yes, definitely. And I don't want to get too much into it, but our education system, or the mainstream education system, it's so counterproductive for life and for staying open to the wonders of life, and to be able to play and to experiment and to be unique as well.
Right.
Instead, it's everybody come into this box and stay in this box and just be that box. And it's like, oh well, this is difficult. So I'm interested. Michelle, you have been, or you actually have a book, not have been writing a book. You actually have a book. What was the inspiration for actually writing the book? How was that journey, and what's the message that you're hoping people get from that?
I love that. I love that. Do you mind if I comment on something real quick about what you were saying about education?
Yes.
I think parents, and I agree with you that our education system, because it's been around for so long, is very conservative and, like they don't think outside the box. But I think the parents are beginning to change things, and that is what's going to take. A lot of times they're going to be homeschooled so that they can integrate things in that need to be integrated, spiritually. Okay, so it's very interesting about the book because, so whenever I came out as a psychic medium is whenever COVID happened, and we were, of course, closed in, and I was learning and I just loved it. And I was taking workshop after workshop online. And one day, and I think it was during meditation, because your mind is so open to it. And I was thinking all the experiences that I've had in education, all the new experiences that I'm having as a psychic medium, and also as a behavior analyst, because I used to work with parents in the home, how can I bring all of these experiences together to help people or help kids, and support them in the spiritual realm? And what really motivated me as well is when I was taking a workshop with other psychic mediums, everybody shared their story, and it was the exact same thing. My parents, and of course, it wasn't your story, Brian, at all. They were saying, my parents shut me down. My grandmother said I was talking to the devil and I had to close it up. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now they're professional psychic mediums. And so it just kind of all came together. And when it did, I knew exactly what needed to be in the book. It was almost like Spirit was coming and said, yes, this is exactly what needs to be in there. Because what I started with, it didn't finish the same way as when I started. You know how books evolve. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened. And I had a wonderful editor who is in the spiritual realm as well. And I mean, it just lined up perfectly. I found her immediately. And it was like people were coming to me to help me publish this book. And she had some wonderful ideas. And I'm going, oh my gosh, why didn't I think about that? So to me, it's coming from the spirit realm. I'm just the one that's channeling it and writing it down. And whenever I first wrote the book, the goal was to help parents, educate them and help light workers go into the home and help them. But the more it's out on the market, parents are saying, I can actually use this to help my child. I don't need a third party right now. This is a resource I can use. And I'm going, oh, I didn't think about it. You just never know how it's going to turn out.
Beautiful. And for everybody, like, we haven't even mentioned the name, and I think that in the name of the book, it's so important. It's the spiritual nurturing of intuitive children. And
yes.
And that is, that for me, that nourishment, that is what I had. That is mm-hmm. what a lot of kids are actually missing based on where they were born and the parents' experiences as well. So it's not about like pointing fingers or about saying anyone is in the wrong. It's just about understanding how to nurture this different part of it, and the other part of the title, that is the training parents to embrace and enhance their psychic child's abilities. That's so important. The understanding of the place of the parents, or whether that's not the parents, it's another figure that can actually embrace and can create that environment of openness and safety, so that the kid can actually be open to their gifts and they are already there.
And what's going to be interesting is because I do think things are changing, especially after COVID, because a lot of people were at home and thinking, okay, it slowed me down. Now I really have to think about my life. And I think a lot of people did. But, children have not changed. I think we've always had that intuitiveness. But I think when us as adults are changing and we're going to be embracing it, I think it's going to be, because I know already the energy is changing. So I'm excited to see how the next 10, 20 years come with these kids.
Yes, definitely. It's and I mean it's so different, the energy that the kids are coming with, but as well as you just said, like it's all about how adults are changing and are being more conscious to then allow that to happen. And I'm curious if you can share just a few things that you would like for parents out there to know.
Well, and it's very interesting to think outside the box. I think that you need to be, your unique self as a parent as well, but also open it up to the chance that your child is actually talking to the divine and the spirit realm. And that is a part of them. It is a part of us because we all can do this. And it's just something that we need to embrace and just listen to your child. Maybe, they can teach us something. Because I know in education, these kids taught me more than what I taught them. And I think this definitely could be. So just really be open to any possibility. And I think a lot of people know it, but they just don't know how to deal with it. And just look out. There's so many resources. Go to somebody who you trust, and it may be a psychic medium. Be open to that. And the more that you learn, I think the more that you can embrace it.
I love the fact that you just shared that kids can be our teachers. I mean, for me, everything in life is a teacher, but I see a lot when I used to work as a teacher with kids. This is many years ago as well. But it's incredible if we allow ourselves to be open to learning from them and to see all of those different qualities and to see like, actually I have never thought about doing that way. It's like, I don't know, I could grab like a piece of Lego or something like that, and it's like, oh well, this is a rectangle. It's like there's another rectangle. No, this can be like a pirate ship, or this can be an island, or it's like, well, all of this, like the kids' mind's ability is so open, so creative that can teach me something. So being open to that is definitely so good.
Absolutely. And also want parents to understand that if they're special needs, if they're any type, they have, and I don't want to say disability because that's a part of them as well. They are as spiritual as anybody else. And when I was doing research, I also found out that, a lot of autism kids can communicate with the parents if they're nonverbal telepathically. So, you just never know how the spirit world's going to come in and just say, okay, we all have these abilities. You need to use them.
Yes. And I love, like one of my clients works with neuro-diverse kids, and it's a really interesting world because they do behave differently and they have different abilities. And for some things, I think that they are so much more connected with certain things. Like a lot of kids with autism, they are so focused on one thing. It's incredible. And as you're saying, like they might not have the same like social cues and communication as we might have, but they are communicating. It's about us opening to the way that they are communicating. And I think that's a lot of times the case of being able to actually, instead of trying to get someone to do things in a certain way, it's like, how can I open myself to understand that?
Absolutely. And, whenever I would work with a child with autism, and this happened more than once, they would look off in the distance and they would start laughing. And I'm going, okay, somebody's talking to you, or you're seeing something I can't see. And so I'd always go, who are you talking to? And they would look at me and they would just laugh. And so you just, so don't, and kind of take it like what I said. Who are you talking to? And I think a lot of times we'll have meltdowns because sometimes they want to be in that world. And here we're making them come to our world. And it can be a difficult experience, but like you said, just connect on a different level with them.
Yeah. And I think that, like for me, one of the things that I try to do in my life and that I try to share as well is the integrating of all of these different parts, because we have this separation of like, there's the spiritual world and then there's this world here. And it's like, well, no, like it's all one. It's just that because we are separating it, we are creating this differentiation, and then we need to bring it together. But if we start to integrate things, then we can actually allow all of that to happen at the same time.
You just never know. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you think of it that way, everything is a miracle. Everything is spiritual. And it just, to me, you raise your energy that way.
Yes. Once I remember once I went to one of my teachers and I said like I had this synchronicity, and that's a word that I love. And it's like, and she was like, okay, what was it? And I said, and she's like, so that was the only synchronistic thing that happened to you? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, no, like everything was a synchronicity. You just need to be open to notice it. That was so clear that it was like that, that it's just like, oh yes, but like, and I think that you just use the word miracle. Everything can be seen from that lens. And if we actually open up to see everything as this co-creation with the universe, as this miracle or synchronistic event, how different our life is.
Absolutely. And I love that, because I think a lot of people will go, oh, that was just by chance. And I'm going, no, I don't think so. But, the more people see things and you're going, it wasn't a coincidence, they'll finally get it in their mind. Oh, you know what? You might be right. But again, they're on a different journey. So I don't want to downplay the people that don't think, because they're here to learn themselves.
Yes, definitely. So, Michelle, for those that are resonating with what you're saying, that want to know more, perhaps read your book or work with you, where can they find you?
I usually say go to my website, because I have everything on there. You can find me from YouTube and everything on my website. So it's www.michellehendersonmedium.com.
Beautiful.
And if they're looking at the book and they're going, I'm not for sure, they can, subscribe to it, and I can send them a free chapter of the book.
Cool. Sounds good.
So they get a clips of it.
Yeah. And we will have that link where they can find you on the show notes, so that everybody can go easily there. So if you're listening and you're resonating with this, or you're noticing something if you're a parent, perhaps like from your kids, check it out. There might be something of you're hearing this for a reason. It's synchronistic, perhaps. So just if it's resonating, check it out. Go and check the website out and see if you potentially want to work with her, or you want to explore this by yourself at home with your kids. So thank you so much, Michelle, for taking your time as well to share with us.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed the conversation.
Beautiful. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ, so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.